Don't look now, but you're listening to the Yellow Bag Brigade, the authorities on everything geek. And now, whether you like it or not, here are your hosts, Michael Nystrom and Johan Arwidmark.
Welcome all to the episode covering patching. We like to call it not for the faint of heart, but bottom line, it's not as easy as it could be. Is it, Jordan?
No, it's really not. It's one of those things that should be easy, but for whatever reason, it never seems to be.
So I've been in the industry for, a very long time doing software updates, but rumor is that you once upon a day or back in the days actually landed a job because of patching.
It's true. So when I first started a job at a bank, they basically, the guy that was currently doing the config manager work, who was not a config manager engineer, really didn't want to do that. And so part of how I got my first engineer role from working as an analyst was, hey, you like patching, so here's the config manager console. Good luck. Now you're the patching engineer for SCCM. Oh, and also we need you to do OSD in the next 4 months and go from Windows XP to 7. I've been stuck doing patching ever since.
Sounds like fun, and I know you have been working with every type of organizations from just a few thousand up to six-figure numbers in terms of clients to patch, and that's, of course, a story on its own. But
yeah, patching gets weird once you get past about 50,000 devices. The largest organization I ever worked with was 170,000 endpoints when you combine servers and desktops together, and that was an interesting experience in and of itself.
So most organizations these days that have config manager in place, they obviously use the integration with the software update point and essentially using WSUS in the backend to get information about the updates. And as many admins have realized the last year and a half is that, first of all, not all updates are like perfect when they're released, and other updates are causing interesting scenarios. Like there was one patch last year that decided to force every client to download a complete new list of updates, the catalog from the WSUS. And when you have tens of thousands of clients downloading a several hundred meg file from the same server, that server will be
very
a little
sad.
bit busy. Yeah, is the word. So if you have to summarize just the 2 tips and tricks for the general config manager admin that happens to have to do patching, what would they be in terms of the WSUS, like maintenance and tuning and all that fun stuff?
So a couple of big things that I see happen more often than I probably should see happen is that periodically WSUS just breaks, and we don't always know why. We just know that it's broken. And in our panic to reinstall WSUS and rebuild it, sometimes people click next, 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 and accidentally reinstall with a Windows internal database instead of SQL. Don't do that. It makes your config manager and your WSUS server very, very sad. So make sure you're using SQL first step. And once you've made sure you're using SQL, make sure, if you're not already, that you're using the Ola Hollinger method to do your indexing and optimization of the databases. And make sure, if you can, try and do it daily. You're not going to hurt anything by doing it daily. If anything, you're only going to help stuff. And finally, really kind of the last 2 big ones are, 1, if you haven't already added the indexes for deletion, make sure you get your indexes added for deletion. And 2, make sure that you have removed those old operating systems you aren't using anymore. We're coming up on the end of Windows 7 as it is right now. Any organization that's already finished the migration all the way over to Windows 10, there's no longer a need to keep that Windows 7 product checkbox checked anymore. That's a few thousand updates right there that you can expire and clean up via the cleanup thing.
Yeah, so 2020 will be a good year for admins working with patches, being able to get rid of a lot of the junk has been cluttering the database and all the packages and distribution points, etc. as well. So good stuff.
2020 is going to be really interesting for patching. We've been being teased with this whole UUP concept lately. That was part of what happened with the 1903 version of Config Manager and the whole 1903 and later Windows updates thing that came out. We got a nice little tease about that at MMS, and then we got a nice little tease again shortly afterwards. So hopefully we'll get to learn what exactly UUP is going to be in the future, and that should help a lot too with that too.
So tell me what you know so far.
Literally the extent of the technical information about UUP is that it's coming and it's going to fix stuff. If you go out there and you Google it, there is zero technical information about it out there. Me and actually a friend of mine, Brian Dam, went and did a whole bunch of digging one day, and Donna Ryan too. We went a bunch of digging. There's like one reference to it, and it's in a Reddit post that one of us made asking about it, and there was no official response to it.
Awesome.
All we know is that the architecture for it got implemented in 1903, and what exactly that architecture means and will do, we don't know yet.
So from what I've heard, listening in the trenches, is it's all about reducing patch size and making them more efficient. Basically, what the promise of Express installation file updates were in the beginning, and they turned up not being that great after all, because the initial payload was so heavy in comparison to what you saved later on, and the whole implementation was just a little bit messy, and there was no going back either. Once you had it, it's like have to start over if you wanted to get away from it. That was pretty painful.
Yeah, and that had to do with how they did the slices for the deltas in between every version of it, because when you got your package for your update file for it, what you were actually getting was you were getting a package with a leaf for each one of the individual months to try to figure out where do we go from. And the UUP progress is supposed to, it's weird. It's basically kind of what was hinted at MMS was that we were going to go backwards and then we were going to go forwards. It's kind of weird, but there's been no good explanation yet of it, I feel like.
So back to WSUS for a second. So the product as a whole haven't changed much, but still we're adding more and more workload to it. And even though there is like, it may not be the greatest platform anymore, and I probably think that in the long term it will be replaced by something else, but for now that's what we have. And with a little bit of tuning, a little bit of helping and optimizing, it can actually be made behave quite a lot.
Totally agree.
And speaking of making it behave, you wrote a blog post recently, or actually 2 blog posts recently on patching.
I did. So I wrote a couple of blog posts, and this actually comes out of the whole joyful experience of working with several 100,000 devices and over 20,000 servers. And I got tired of, so Config Manager has the really awesome ability to create offsets for when you want your ADRs to run, but doesn't have the ability to create offsets for when you want your maintenance windows to run. And so if you're trying to plan patching around it, and this all stems back to the whole WSUS and some of the Config Manager stuff around patching hasn't changed too terribly much because the architecture itself works. Once you tune everything up and get everything the way it works, it works. And so I kind of, got tired of having to recreate maintenance windows every month and for 20,000 servers. And so finally I said, you know what, enough's enough. And so I wrote a big, giant, long script instead to kind of get around this idea that instead of what we would do is we would start every month with patching from Patch Tuesday. And we would go day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, whatever, however many days we thought it would take to get us to do patching. And then we would break each of those days up into 4-hour blocks. So 6 maintenance windows for every one of those days. And what I did was I wrote a PowerShell script that would actually create all of the maintenance windows and all the collections and attach all of them together along with Active Directory security groups all in one big, long work process string so that at the end of the day, all the admins who had no idea how to do any of the stuff in Config Manager side of stuff could just put their servers in the named Active Directory groups to get patches X number of days after Patch Tuesday. No more trying to figure out third Thursday, third Wednesday, third whatever. It's 4 days after Patch Tuesday. Everybody knows when Patch Tuesday is. We can predict that with relative certainty, so we just did it that way. And those are all out there now. So instead of having to recreate maintenance windows every month, I just run 2 scripts that take about 30 seconds to run, actually less than that really, and go get a cup of coffee and come back, and I'm done for the entire year.
That sounds pretty okay.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't suck. That's for sure.
So it's fun to see because over the years I've been obviously following your blog way before you came to our team as well, and patching has always been like the one very central focus in your writing and your scripting and stuff. One thing that always made me like smile was the Power BI reports that they put together, how you can basically very quickly get an overview on how are you doing, exactly how good are you. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, the reports thing again. It started off that same organization. It's really hard when you have 20,000 machines, and all of those machines are owned by different people, different areas of business, different areas of chunks of whatever. To make sure that you have a good, concrete picture of what your environment really looks like and why. And Config Manager and WSUS do a interesting job / thing with reports and reporting. I say interesting because, and this comes into the question of scale. There are two major views really in Config Manager for doing reporting. And it's the compliance status all and it's the compliance status views. And if you look in the status all view in a small organization with a very low number of product IDs checked, it's not too bad. But if you work in a large organization, it quickly becomes million, 10 million, 14 million rows worth of data, which is really, really, really hard to report on with any semblance of accuracy or meaning. So I kind of got tired of waiting for 3 hours for reports, as did management get tired of waiting 3 hours for reports. So I started figuring out, okay, how can I get the majority of the data and the data that I really care about? What's the data I really care about? And when Microsoft made the change to using the cumulative update rollup model, that patching and reporting model became a lot easier because all we had to really care about was the most recent cumulative update and maybe one or two cumulative updates back. That then allowed us to trim down the total amount of data that we needed to pull out of those really, really big data views and only have to report and calculate against that. Which then led us to give us the ability with Power BI to create these nice, shiny sliders where we could drop down and filter on different pieces of information like KB, domain name, software update group, collection, or, just random particular dedicated software update.
Awesome, thanks. So if you haven't taken a look at those reports before or this Power BI dashboard, please go ahead and do that. But I think that was basically it for now. Thanks for listening. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about reducing the network impact for Windows 10. Thank you for now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Yellow Bag Brigade, the authorities on everything geek. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you didn't, that's your problem. Till next time, embrace automation.